We
Yes.
are live on two YouTube channels, Transparency and Merit and Inflammatory Talk, and on our X channels, Mr. Midnight Movie, Walk Against the Woke, and we have another Inflammatory Talk channel. So,
Yeah. Wow. A lot of
yeah,
options for logging in and listening.
yeah.
Make sure, make sure you like and subscribe.
Make sure that you like and hit that subscribe button. If you gain anything from this episode, social media censorship is about protecting establishment egotists.
That's right. That's right.
Really, than it is about safety. Censorship as power um, consolidation. Critics argue that censorship on social media platforms can be seen as a tool for those in power or an influence um, to
Yeah.
control the narrative. And egotists often want to control the narrative. And when someone's been telling you things for years, Joey, and then that narrative gets questioned in an effective way, it seems like people want to shut that down and they don't want that to go any further.
Well, there's a protected narrative and there is reality. And I think those two are in constant, um, they're at odds with one another. And so there's a constant battle going on. And I think this has to do with the ego. And you've talked about it. And I'm wondering if you are aware of kind of like the three main principles of the superego, the ego, and the id, and how the three, um, at least in Freud's view, like how they interact and how we develop.
So the
Um,
super ego, give it to me again, Joey. The super ego.
we have the superego, and the ego. The ego is kind of how we view reality. The superego kind of puts that in check. It's sort of the check thing, and then the id is kind of our infant mind.
So the concept of the id, ego, it's actually reversed. So it's id, ego, and superego was fundamental to Freud's uh, uh, his psychiatric analysis, his theory of personality, which describes different components of the human psyche. The id is the most primitive part of the mind, uh, present from birth. It operates on the pleasure principle, seeking immediate gratification of all desires, wants, and needs.
It's our infant mind. It's what we strive or should be striving to, um, maybe to accept and utilize, but then move on. And the ego is sort of the driver for understanding and perceiving reality. At least that's how I see it. I view it like a chair or a table with three legs, and without either of those, if any of the three legs are missing, the table's going to fall over. So you got to have all three in balance.
So the ego develops from the id and is responsible for dealing with reality. It operates on the relative principle, which means It
Yes.
understands that certain behaviors have consequences and some impulses need to be controlled or delayed. Now, right now in our social structure, we don't have people's ego under control, and their impulses to do things are not under, because there's no consequences. When we do not have consequences, uh, ego goes out of control. So I
Right.
wonder.
The super ego has no influence or not enough influence over the ego to kind of check it, cross check it, and so yeah, what we see and what we have seen is egos run amok.
Yeah, the super ego is the moral compound of the psyche. It uh, it develops as a result of societal and parental influence, incorporating rules and moral standards from one's parents and society. The superego can be divided into two systems: the conscience, the aspect this aspect punishes the ego with feelings of guilt or breaking moral, societal, uh, or parental rules. Ideal, self ego, ego, ideal. The part of the reward, the part rewards the ego with feeling of pride uh, or satisfaction for behaving in accordance with societal norms. Now, 2020, Joey, I believe we saw societal norms flipped on its head, and certain forms of hypocrisy. We saw people making rules and then breaking rules. We had some of these, I showed you some of the clips
Yeah.
of some of these doctors who made COVID rules, and then we're having both drug parties and sex parties. And I'm not opposed to either one. Like if you can find consenting adults, but you locked people in their homes and would charge, I mean, like would punish them if they left their homes. There were people that were arrested for kayaking here in California. I actually had an Uber ride from someone who was arrested for he was one of the people that was arrested for kayaking out in the ocean by himself.
Hmm.
He was not, they didn't want people out into the ocean, and what they told him, they said, well, if you go kayaking, other people will try to go kayaking or use the ocean and the beaches, and these are restricted. And the New York rules and the California rules were pretty similar. And then you see this one guy, Dr. J. Varma, I believe that's his name, who was having drug parties and sex parties during this time. And he was one of the ones making the rules. And Joey, I don't know about you, but hearing something like that, and you and I were both affected by this pandemic, it does to a degree make my blood really boil, Joey.
Well, it did. Um, First, egos took off,
Yeah.
and I think, and there's so much division, and I think we're kind of struggling with that now. But that was kind of when it really reared its head. It became finally super clear to a lot more people, at least, um, that we had just been divided in so many ways. So, um, yeah, that was pretty interesting to watch, and it wasn't really a good outcome for in a lot of ways, socially and economically.
Now, I have a phrase that says hypocrisy is abuse and hypocrites are abusers. Would you agree with that, Joey?
I believe so. Well, why don't you give a little more detail?
Well, I've grokked it.
No,
In
of
the
course.
statement, hypocrisy is abuse and hypocrites are abusers touches on a deeply nuanced intersection, and it's kind of a new word, intersection, between personal behavior, moral standards, and psychological impact, drawing from both philosophical thought and psychological analysis.
Well, it's like I've been saying too, that an act of mayhem that happens at when a baby lands on the ground and all that. There's an act of mayhem, and I do uh, assert that that was the impetus, the beginning of all mental health issues.
Well, I mean, I think certain forms of hypocrisy, if a
Mhm.
parent is a hypocrite, that can create some form of mental health issues or at least some form of trauma or toxic. There is always a power dynamic when it comes to hypocrisy.
Yes.
Often involves a power play where a party feels superior or exempt from the rules they impose on others. The power dynamic can easily tip into abusive territory. And I think there was really abusive territory with regards to these pandemic lockdowns. It feels extremely abusive, along with the BLM protest, the hyperbolic and the histrionic behavior that is often chastised throughout our culture has changed. And social media basically censored those that were opposing this type of behavior. And certain people don't have a voice anymore. And for me, Joey, it's put such a bad taste in my mouth. And I feel that a lot of people who are in power, I mean, I used to feel there were certain people. Now I feel a lot of people in power are not honest. And when when I see certain people and I hear them, I'm thinking, you're an egotist. You're a narcissist. You're an egotist. You're not a good person, and are you're a flying monkey for these type of people. You're an enabler of narcissism and egotism, and I don't want to be around you either because you know. And if I try to address this issue, I get shut down just as much by the egotist or just as much by the flying monkeys as I do by the narcissist.
Well,
And
like I was saying, there's a protected narrative, and any evidence that goes against the narrative, it must be squashed
yeah,
or ignored.
yeah. And I don't believe, like I said, I do believe that ego. I think ego sometimes is a bigger is with these with these woke leftist types. Ego is often a bigger incentive than even profit. And I believe a lot of times that sometimes once people become successful, ego often becomes a bigger issue than profit.
Oh yeah, yeah, and that's what you see in the financial world. Uh, you see the what used to be the basic fundamentals of a company's reporting had a lot more influence, but now it seems like there are a lot kind of I would say obscured sort of factors that are really taking over the reins and controlling. What's up, Retro?
Well, we got retro, and uh, High Ridge states that Brian, how can you support the diddler? Which he means P Diddy.
Well, he was just asking, not how, but
Well,
I don't.
Brian, do you support the diddler?
Yeah,
You know what? No, absolutely I don't. But I'll say this: I think he does deserve a fair trial, and I don't like the way that the court of public opinion. Like, I don't know what evidence they have against him or how much evidence they have against him. But Joey, do you remember the McMartin preschool case?
I sure do. I think it was in San Diego.
Yes, it was, and they were completely railroaded. So I want to really urge people. You know, he is innocent until proven guilty. There looks to be a lot of evidence against him, but let's look at the case and see exactly what is out there, because a lot of things, particularly with AI, can be manipulated. And I think really it's time for a little bit of stoicism and not to get emotional. Ego as a
And
ego
I see it a lot differently.
really.
I see it all as theater, and with the primary part of this being child trafficking. And I mean, I have very different views on it. I don't really see it as um, I don't see it. I think in terms of kind of like the most like what most people will default into thinking. It's really kind of allegorical and telling a more important story. But I think that might be something we get into in future shows because it's something to explore, and people want to have their views, but this is just more stagecraft at its finest. They're really kind of pushing the boundaries of what's just I've just heard some really crazy stories already, and it's just starting. So we'll see where it goes.
Yes. And Joey, I might add right now that
Yes, go ahead, Brian. Uh-oh, did we lose Brian? I don't know. But I'm still here. So you are listening to an episode of Transparency and Merit, and we'll see if Brian makes his way back in. Otherwise, we can move on because Brian is really stuck on egotism, and I think he likes to explore that a lot. Right? Are you here? Brian was shut down. He got taken out. It's okay. The diddler, man. The diddler is an extreme case. Wow. I have heard a bunch of side stories that are just appalling. But, it's not too different, in my view, than the whole um, Eric and oh, what are the two brothers named? The Menendez brothers. Um, Kyle was the other one, and I think we're seeing some pretty interesting kind of side stories that are stemming from the new uh, biopic that's running. It's a bunch of garbage, but they really push the boundaries in that script writing. It's just so insane, and so is the Diddler story. Wow, again pushing those boundaries and maybe doing a little social programming. Don't know. Anyways, let's see. Is Brian gonna join us again? We'll have to see. I'll give him a couple more seconds. Um, but wow, you're all here. Got 10 people here. Now I don't know where you're all listening from. I don't know. Well, I'd love to get into this further, but I think with Brian on the sidelines, oh, I think we got him back just in time.
Yeah, we just sorry
I,
about.
no, I was going to give up on it. I didn't know if you were coming back, but
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, I am coming back, and yeah, it's really hopefully you kept the fort down while I was gone.
I did not actually. No, I was just kind of fumbling through a little bit, but I find so much of this to be theater, and there's a lot of wickedness out there, and these stories are I think they're telling a tale, and there's truth in those in the tales, but I think you have to read between the lines and kind of look at it from both the kind of face value side of things and also the more allegorical side of things, and I think the truth lies somewhere in between.
Well, Joey, life is a stage,
Well, the
and
world certainly seems to be more and more. It shows its stagecraft, and the stagecraft is breaking down, and fewer people are buying the lies.
yeah, I mean that certainly can happen, where fear people can buy the lies and buy the nonsense that is spewed out there, and that is just the way it goes, Joey. I
That is
mean,
a fine picture of Scott that you've posted there.
yeah, yeah, he is a new star. We're going to put him in Willie Loman. I think he would be great. Too bad Dennis isn't alive, but I think he would be great in the Sunshine Boys. Do you remember that movie, Joey? The Sunshine Boys.
Yes, yeah.
And
Robert,
Joey,
it's
yeah,
Robert Redford, if I right. Robert Redford was one of them.
in no, it was Walter Matthau and
Oh, Jack Lemon. No,
yes.
that's
Now I'm going to play us out because we're getting close to Halloween, Joey.
Trick or
This
Treat.
is Frankenstein. Is there anything else to add, Joey?
There's
Before
a
I
lot. There's a lot of ways to go with this, but I do love the Frankenstein tale. Yeah, once his monster created a bunch of problems in the town, and they came right for Dr. Frankenstein. Let's see what the song sounds
okay,
like.
Joey, I have two songs you can choose from: Frankenstein versus Jason Voorhees, or Frankenstein's Bar Mitzvah.
Let's go with the Bar Mitzvah.
All right, here we go. This is Frankenstein's Bar Mitzvah, folks.
This is garbage. Come on. Are you kidding me? Ah,
All right, let me go. You know what? I'm going to go to Frankenstein versus Voorhees.
okay. Let's bring on the vomit. Good Lord. Are you kidding me? What the hell?
All right, you know what? I'm going to end it out
Thank
on
God.
this song. Here we go. Here's another song. Here we go.
Old man has a secret charm. Hairy back, but he means no harm. He's got a heart that's pure gold. Even though he's growing old. Laughing through the days and nights. His hairy back ain't out of sight. Love is more than skin and bone. It's in every laugh and groan. Hairy back's been loved too. It's a secret that they hold true. Through the rough and through the smooth.
All right, guys, like and subscribe. This is the most monstrous song ever.
Jeez, we got to come up with some better songs. These are awful. We got to do better than this.